Hello, everyone. This is Penina Taylor, and you're watching Unorthoboxed with Penina Taylor, where we take a look at everything Jewish, inside the box, outside the box, controversial, and inspirational. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, it seemed like everybody's life revolved around the television. Well, not everybody's, but most people's. Everyone had one, and everyone had a favorite show. But today, very few people actually own TV sets anymore. If you go into someone's house and you ask to see their TV, they'll likely show you is a huge computer monitor that's hooked up to cable maybe. But many people don't even have that because they can watch television through the internet on their computers. In fact, our lives practically revolve around the internet. In fact, you're probably watching this on the internet. I don't think there's any other way to. Anyway, unless you're a religiously observant Jew. The vast majority of Orthodox Jews do not watch television, and the kashrut or kosherness of the internet has been hotly debated for years. Several years ago, I attended a conference in Jerusalem for religious women in business, and the topic of the conference was social networking. The idea was to teach religious Jewish women, how they could use social networking to promote their businesses. In the opening session, a very well-respected rabbi, a posek, talked about the internet and how evil it was. And then a rebbitzin, also very well-respected, someone who runs a seminary, she also got up and talked about the internet and how evil it is. I was the third in line to speak as the facilitator of a panel discussion on the topic. And as I walked up the stage, I thought to myself, you know, why are we even having this conference? If the internet is so evil and we're not supposed to have it. Well, I spoke in my talk about the internet as a tool, comparing it to a chainsaw. The invention of power tools like the chainsaw revolutionized the building and construction world, enabling people to build bigger and better homes among a variety of other things. But one wrong move, and you could kill someone with it. Well, joining me today on this show is Rabbi Jonathan Gewirtz. I met Rabbi Gewirtz through Facebook, and in a very interesting way, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. Thank you for joining us, Rabbi.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Okay, on January 19th, 2015, I got on my computer to find a Facebook message by Rabbi Ben-Zion Klatzko saying that Rabbi Dovid Winiarz had been killed in a car accident. The car he was traveling in hit a patch of ice, and the rest was history. I was stunned. Rabbi Dovid and I were what I considered to be close friends. But not only me. I soon discovered that tens of thousands of people across the world were also stunned and grieving at the death of the man that we all knew as the Facebuker Rebbe. Now, Rabbi Gewirtz, you were one of those people. Maybe if you wouldn't mind, share with us a little bit of what you saw on that day.
Okay, well, I will tell you that I wasn't even home. I was in Florida, and my wife looked at her phone and she said, "What are they saying about David?" I didn't know what she was talking about, and then I read the same kind of posts that you did. I will just say, I won't call it a car accident. I don't believe in accidents. David would call it a coincidence, an incident where we get to see God, whatever the plan is. But what I saw on that day was a huge outpouring of emotion. People feeling bereft at the loss of a father figure, of a friend, of a teacher. People asking, what am I going to do now? People saying, what can I do now? People started raising money for the family, trying to make sure that they could go on without their father. People wanted to share their personal stories. There was a lot of grieving. There were people who said, I don't know what I'm going to do without the weekly emails that he sends me asking, how are you doing? What's going on? Some people said, I'm going to miss the jokes that he said. There was actually an interesting, amazing upsurge of people who stepped forward and said, I'm going to try to continue this legacy. Almost immediately, as morbid as it may sound, someone began a page they called the Rabbi Dovid Winiarz Smile page, where they posted puns and jokes. He was known to love coffee, which I don't know if he even loved coffee. I think he used coffee as a way to get a conversation with people, because that was important to everyone. It's a conversation opener that you have. People started doing chesed. People started doing all kinds of things that they felt he had been doing in his lifetime, and they wanted to continue. Personally, I had been sharing Divrei Torah with David for years. He'd been sharing them with his Facebook family. And for me, that was a fantastic outlet. And I now lost that, and I said, you know what? I'm going to try to take over that piece, at least a little bit. The dedication that he had was beyond human comprehension. As we found out, as the stories came out, it turned out that this man, who most of us saw as just a fellow on the internet, on Facebook, was really doing so much more and touching people's lives in a very real way.
He was incredible, wasn't he? So when he died and you got on the internet, were you expecting the response that you saw?
I will say I was expecting to hear from people that he mattered, but not the sheer volume of messages and comments and literally hundreds of people grieving. It's not a typical thing. Even when you've got a Rosh Yeshiva, or you have someone who has tens of thousands of mourners at their funeral, they may not have known him or personally interacted with him. He, using the internet, personally interacted with all of these people. And there were some people who just watched and the things that he posted, and then there were people that he interacted with, and they would call him or he would call them, and there were a lot of connections that were made because of using his Facebook page.
Yeah, something like 90% of the people had only known him through the internet, through Facebook, basically, right?
That's probably very true. Yes, absolutely. And yet, he managed to make a very personal impact on each of them.
Incredible, incredible. Okay, so let's use this as a jumping off point to talk a little bit about how he got into being the Facebuker Rebbe. I mean, the truth is that he is a yeshivish rabbi, black jacket, black hat kind of guy, the kind of guy that most people would expect probably wouldn't even have the internet in his home. And here he is, he's on the internet, on Facebook, mamash, talking with people and interacting with people and engaging people. And I know, because you've known him for so long, you know a little bit about how that happened. If you could share with us.
Okay. Well, those people who know David for his whole life, even before I knew him, knew that he was always very interested in outreach. He had been the campus rabbi at College of Staten Island. He'd been involved in Gypsy, which was Jewish public school youth. I'm going to share a story just for a moment, give you an idea of the persona that he was. He had gone to a class of public school children, and this is a story that I got because someone shared it after he passed away. And they were talking about the Holocaust. And David said, what do you think would be the best revenge against Hitler? And different kids had different ideas, to gas him or make him work in the labor camps. And David listened, and he sat back with a smile. You know what I think the best revenge is? Breathing. That was David. So he really loved people. He wanted people to be happy. He wanted people to be smiling. He always gave out these cards. I have one I'll show you a little bit later, encouraging people to smile. And he knew about Facebook, and he said, if membership were population, Facebook would be the third largest country in the world. Right. And he said to me that he thought about it, and he knew that if he lost a student to a club, he knew people who could go in and kind of pull them out of that. He says, but if that rabbi lost someone to Facebook, who's going to pull them out? And that's when his crusade began, to become the Facebuker Rebbe, to bring true Torah knowledge in Judaism and awareness to people who might otherwise have no connection to it, no opportunity to learn about it. So he went to his Rebbe, his Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Feinstein, and he discussed it and he explained what he wanted to do. And Rabbi Feinstein had a couple of conditions. First of all, he said that his wife had to know his password. And second of all, he had to there were other people involved in Kiruv on Facebook as well and outreach. They had to keep an eye on him. And David said to his rabbi, I also want a bracha, a blessing from you, that I'm going to stay safe. Because he knew the internet is a very, very dangerous place, if not used correctly. Like we said, the chainsaw. And he would go every year to renew that blessing. And he began, and he would post things, sometimes jokes, sometimes stories, sometimes Torah thoughts. He would get them from different places. He would write them himself, and he would post it. And I'm just going to tell you something. I had an opportunity to be in his office one day. We were going somewhere together. I went to pick him up. He says, before I leave, I have to do something. And he prepared 2 or 3 different posts to post on Facebook throughout the day. He says, now I can go to work with you. Mm-hmm. That was my introduction to the Facebuker Rebbe and how he got started.
So there's just, I am overwhelmed by how much, there's a lot of garbage out there today, and you have to be so discerning to be able to pick up on the subtleties of what's kosher and what's not. But if you think about it, we could probably name 20 or 30 organizations. You have Chabad Online, you have Eish Torah, you have Hidabrut, you have, I know I'm going to leave a whole bunch out. Maybe you can even add to it.
There's Torah.org, there is countless groups of one's called Stack Exchange, that people comment and ask questions. There are, if I had the card that David gave me, you know what, I actually think I have a card of Jewish resources, but there is, or Sameach is online, there's a lot of wonderful resources out there.
That's right. Well, I listened to my Divrei Torah on YU online. There's some tremendous teachers there as well. And it's just incredible how the Jewish world has used this medium, which many Rebbeim said, no, stay away from it. Don't have it in your home. Don't have anything to do with it. Even it's very interesting. I came across an article several years ago in a popular Jewish magazine about the Belzer Hasidim and how the Belzer Rebbe is very much into outreach. And they actually have a website. And it's very carefully managed, because most Belzer Hasidim do not have internet in their homes, and they prefer it that way, and I totally understand it. But they do have this website so that they can reach out to people who are on the internet. And it's just absolutely amazing how much is out there and how much good has been done by the Jewish community on this, as we were saying, this medium that really could be very, very dangerous and potentially lethal to not only the neshama itself, but the Jewish family and the Jewish community at large. And there's a tremendous amount, for example, on the opposite side, lahavdil, tremendous amount of lashon hara that goes on. I actually did an article one time about Facebook and the what I call the culture of voyeurism, that the internet has allowed us to have access to such a tremendous amount of information that now we have a whole generation of people who think that it's our right. It's our right, not our privilege, our right to know everything about everyone. And when we find out something about someone, to expose it to the world. And every day I find myself just kind of like hitting myself in the face going like, what's going on? Why do these people have to? There was, this article, for those who don't get into Facebook a whole lot, there was a story going around recently, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, of a dentist who went hunting in Africa, and he paid to go on safari or whatever it is that they're doing, paid a lot of money, and he went and he shot a lion. Well, it turns out, much to the dismay of the entire world and his bad luck, that he happened to kill the most popular lion in Africa, called Cecil the lion. Okay, now everybody would have been upset at somebody killing a lion in Africa, but because he killed the beloved Cecil the lion, he's now receiving death threats. He's had to quit his job. And there was a woman, I cannot remember her association with him, but she actually came out on the internet and posted his address and his telephone number so that people could basically attack him. And so now the man has, his entire life is ruined because he did something stupid. And a lot of us would say wrong and bad. And, you know, like how many of us haven't done something stupid and wrong and bad, right? Just his luck, it was something really big. And it became an internet sensation overnight. And now he's losing his entire life. Now, I suppose that the animal activists would say, good, he, you know, a life for a life, right? But of course, Judaism says, no, his life is valuable. And due to this concept that we have the internet and we have the right to say and know anything and everything that's out there. So now this man has to probably go on the run, and he will never be able to earn a parnasa again. And, you know, what do we do with that?
Okay, so you covered a couple different topics here, and I've been listening and thinking about what I wanted to share with you. But let's take it to the first beginning. The basic question: internet, good for the Jews, bad for the Jews?
Yes.
I'm not going to be one of those people who come out and say the rabbis are wrong. They don't know. This is the real world. This is the modern. That's not true. I have too much respect for them. There is Das Torah. There is an understanding that the rabbis guide us, and they're interpreting the traditions and maintaining the traditions and passing them along. But I don't believe that anything is inherently evil. There is an expression that Chazal use, Zeh l'umat zeh asa Elokim. God made balance. Everything in the world has a positive and a negative to it. The fact that the internet has offered people such a plethora of evil choices means that it must be capable of providing good and positive choices as well. So that's the first answer of good for the Jews or bad for the Jews. If used properly, everything can be used for good. Much as Rabbi Winiarz did. He understood he was going into a dangerous place. He wanted to be protected, and he took the precautions that he could. Whether it's having a filter on your computer, on your network, parental controls, controls not just for the kids, but for the parents as well. We all have the possibility of clicking that button that we shouldn't or don't want to or shouldn't want to. And we need to know how to use it and maximize on the positivity. The idea of this cultural voyeurism is an entirely new jumping off point. And it's something that our ancestors could never dream of. Being able to weigh in and offer their opinions on things that really don't affect them, number one. And like you said, cause tremendous harm. It is a tool for good or a tool for bad. People tend to use it as a club to bash people over the head. I have seen cases where people, this just happened this morning. Someone took a picture of a baby carriage that had been left alone. And they said, we call the police, take them away from the parents, and it's terrible. Now, parents should not leave their child alone, even if it's just for a second. But I said to these people, besides the fact that someone suggested, well, have you never done something like that? What would you do if you were in their shoes? They said, so you've called the police, you've taken the child away from their parents, they grow up in foster care, not knowing love, not knowing Judaism perhaps going through tremendous pain. Why? What have you accomplished? Well, I think you're right. People are finding a sense of control and entitlement within it. And I think we have to remember that the laws of Lashon Hara, what's appropriate to say, what's appropriate to think, judging people favorably, all still apply in the electronic age. It's not something that goes away. The Torah is eternal, and the Torah was written for this time as well. So that when you see a story like Cecil the Lion, and I did hear about it peripherally, I didn't follow up on it that much, but you're right, he made a mistake. That's his thing he has to deal with, and people can have an outcry, our poor lion, maybe they should work on safari hunting rules and laws and regulations, but nothing gives you a right to go down and condemn someone else. As the Gemara says, who says your blood is any redder than his? So it is a very dangerous, it's a tightrope that we need to walk, and we need to have guide and balance to be able to walk it properly.
Thank you. I'd like to actually at some point in the future perhaps even explore this a little bit more, but we're starting to run out of time. So I want to ask you, do you have any words of advice for religious Jews concerning use of the internet and allowing, for example, their children to use it, allowing it in the house, etc.?
Okay. It's going to really depend on your circles, because in certain communities where it is not acceptable for people to have it in their home, for you to break with the tradition or break with the mold and have something in their home might be teaching your children the lesson that you can do whatever you want, which might not be a lesson you want to teach them. If it is acceptable to have it in your home, then of course you need proper safeguards. It's the filtering software, it's the parental controls, it's making sure that the computer is in a place that is accessible, so no one's taking something into their room. I once heard an amazing insight, not related to computers at all, but a rabbi who I believe David was close with, mentioned when you give a child their own room, and you give a boy especially his own room, you're not necessarily doing him a favor, because what you're teaching him is there are places that you can have privacy and nobody will see you, and you can act in secret and do whatever you want. And that's what the internet has become, a place where people can be secret and do what they want, whether it's anonymity they're hiding behind on a Facebook name or an anonymous post. You have to teach your children and yourselves how to operate safely, openly, being aware that what you say or what you do will come out eventually.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right. So before we sign off and say goodbye to everybody, I know that you have a card that you wanted to share. Yes, Rabbi Dovid's Keep Smiling card, which I don't have any of, by the way, so I would like to have some. That would be fabulous. I want to thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit of your insights. And like I said, I would definitely like to come back and revisit this sometime in the future.
Bye, everybody, and keep smiling.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Keep smiling. You've been watching Unorthoboxed with Penina Taylor and Rabbi Jonathan Gewirtz, who is stepping into the shoes of, at least a little bit, right, of Rabbi Dovid Winiarz. And this is being done in his memory. Rabbi Dovid Winiarz, who was the Facebuker Rebbe. Thank you again for joining us. This is Unorthoboxed, where we take a look at everything Jewish, inside the box, outside the box, controversial, and inspirational. Have an amazing day.